Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to what has been going on with regards to US sanctions in light of Pakistan's ballistic missile program and in light of the proliferation regime that the US has quoted and of course has put sanctions on the NDC and three other commercial entities. And this is of course additional sanctions that have been put by the US, with similar ones also being put in September earlier this year. There's also of course concern with reference to what has been going on with regards to these particular decisions, with of course the Foreign Office spokesperson also responding to these US sanctions and saying that these are biased, and this is something that of course damages the integrity of the regional peace and stability, and of course Pakistan's own program that is for its own strategic interests and that the nation actually endorses and supports. And so it's very, very important of course to understand the rationale and the foundation behind these decisions and sanctions of the US, and then of course take a look at the ways in which these decisions have been taking place internationally, and then of course a closer look at Pakistan's own ballistic missile program and what it is then that will be the impact of these decisions with reference to how Pakistan engages with the US. That will be our focus in the first segment of the show today. Our next one is going to take a look at the current economic situation with a focus on the Pakistan Stock Exchange, which has witnessed a record single-day decline, and this is of course something that we've spoken about before as well in terms of the fluctuations that exist and in terms of what an indicator this is and how strong a measure of the current economic progress of the country it is. But nevertheless, it's something that of course marks today in terms of Pakistan's economic history, and so we're going to be taking a look at what that means for the current and future scenario. For this and more, as always in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by former Ambassador Mr. G.R. Baluch. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sir, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. It's always a pleasure having you. I want your perspective in terms of the decision making or thought process when we talk about these US sanctions, and it has happened previously as well, and now we have additional ones with the NDC and the other commercial entities. But in terms of the way that we have seen previously also, and this is what the Foreign Office has also highlighted, that there isn't a lot of credibility or evidence in terms of supporting these arguments and in terms of coming to this decision. So I want your understanding in terms of how this works and what really is the thought process or rationale behind making this decision when we talk about the US sanctions.
See, now Pakistan has always been victim of a discriminatory policy by the US, different US governments. So I think this would be yet another such a chapter which can always be regretted, has to be regretted, despite the fact that Pakistan has, since acquiring its nuclear capability, since acquiring its missile capability, has completely and I think thoroughly exhibited a very responsible sort of behavior as a responsible state. It has threatened no country. Actually, we have a big dilemma that the world has to understand, and especially the US State Department, that we live in a most volatile region, that is South Asia, where we have to contend with India, and India under this now BJP militant government has been threatening, has been trying to isolate Pakistan, trying to build a narrative which is not based on facts. So I think these sanctions, which are completely baseless, because Pakistan has acquired missile capability not to threaten anybody, but to keep its strategic autonomy, to keep that vital strategic balance of power in South Asia. And I think it's our legitimate right, and that is exactly the expectation of our people, that our armed forces, our security and our government will ensure. And in fact, as we all know, as the students of political science, that the prime responsibility of any state, and of course with that extension the government, is to ensure the security of the state, its people, its assets, its geography and its territorial integrity. And as we know, our history is rather not very pleasant for us, that our country was bifurcated into two when we did not have that deterrent capability against this bigger, 10 times bigger neighbor. And so then at that time, the nation decided that it must not happen again, or not again, not again. So I think this is definitely a legitimate uh, defense that Pakistan, or capability that Pakistan was acquiring. And these sanctions are definitely not at all justified on any ground, political, military, or moral or legal grounds. So I think we should dismiss it outrightly, and I think we should make a very strong case against it with the U.S. government and explain to them the rationale for acquiring these capabilities that are a must for our security in this rather very difficult and a continent such as South Asia, where our neighbor is now engaged in modernization of missile technology, modernization of its nuclear, and of course, definitely we don't have any parity as far as the conventional capability is concerned. So we have to offset that disparity or disbalance between our capability and the Indian capability by way of having such deterrent weapons in our arsenal. Yes, Sana.
Right, absolutely. And Ambassador Saab, I want your take then in terms of the way that, of course, the Foreign Office has responded, and it has talked about how these sanctions are biased. It has talked about how they are impacting regional stability and peace, and of course, impacting Pakistan's own strategic approaches, which the nation trusts. I want your take on what that does to this relationship. We've, of course, developed that previously. We have had a strong alliance. We still have a working relationship with the U.S., and now, of course, with the new presidency also in place, there are more avenues for collaboration also that are open. But in terms of what we make of this engagement while such decisions are taking place, I want your understanding of what this does to this relationship and what is Pakistan's stance going to be.
Definitely, such sanctions are counterproductive. Not only these sanctions, but sanctions as a policy have proven to be completely a failure at all levels in all regions. And coming to Pakistan, these sanctions on Pakistan definitely are going to be played into the hands of our adversary. They are going to sort of make their own point that yes, Pakistan has been since accused of missile technology proliferation, and that's the kind of narrative that was being built, which is definitely against the actual facts. Number one. Number two, most importantly, I think there is a sentiment in our public opinion in Pakistan as well as abroad that U.S. Has double standards while it has opened its complete doors in transfer of technology and the most sensitive military technology to India. And here we have a case where a legitimate attempt to have complete balance of power in this region are to maintain our credible deterrence. Our efforts are being hampered by these sanctions. But definitely Pakistan being protective, and we know how to protect ourselves, definitely will find ways, I mean legitimate ways of indigenous protection, of finding diversify our own technology, and also that we have enough of technology within our own country, and we do have friends. I think we must not chew our words, with whom we can always collaborate and continue to maintain a credible deterrence as far as defense of Pakistan is concerned. And obviously there's just simply no compromise, and that is a consensus of the nation, of all institutions of the state, that there will be no compromise. Whatever the cost, we have to maintain a deterrence to protect our sovereignty, territorial integrity, and secure our borders. Yes.
Right, absolutely. And Faisal, I want your understanding of these sanctions as well, and why is it that this is something that is coming from the US particularly now, and also in terms of the ways in which we have seen that happen in the past as well, and the kind of impact that it creates on not just our strategic assets, but of course in the ways that we are engaging with the region as well.
Yeah, so now obviously, if we talk about why at this hour I see three reasons.
Okay.
And number one is, of course, when it comes to Pakistan and India, Indo-Pak tension, that has always been there because Kashmir is bone of contention. And when it comes to India, India has created a sort of place in America's heart because of many reasons, and one of them reasons is that it is a huge market, and of course America wants India to deter China and to place China in front of place India in front of China in the South China Sea and empower India against China, and that is how they want to play, number one. And number two, when it comes to at this hour, why are they doing it? Well, there are Jewish lobbies and Hindutva lobbies. When I say Jewish, I don't mean the Judaism as a religion, but of course Zionists I'm talking about. There are Zionist lobbies and Hindutva lobbies that they want to cheer for the future concerns of Democrats as a political party, and that is why Biden administration at this hour it is doing it. Reason being, very soon they will not be in the Oval Office anymore, and they just want to sort of keep a chip. They want to give it to the Zionist lobbies and the Hindutva lobbies against, of course, Pakistan, and we know why they do it and why they cheer them always. And the third is, of course, when it comes to Pakistan has been maintaining multilateral, multipolar approach in terms of having good relations with other powers as well. When it comes to, of course, China, when it comes to Russia, Pakistan wants to have good relations with all of the countries, and America doesn't want that. America wants to squeeze China in terms that it wants to show eyes to China through Pakistan. Why I say this? When it comes to East China Sea, I mean they are such a minnow approach US is having in East China Sea, where they can't do anything about China, and we know they can't do anything about North Korea as well. So they end up coming towards Pakistan and put sanctions on Pakistan and show the world that we are doing it and we are the in charge of the region as well, and we will dictate our terms and we will put an end to whatever the designs of Pakistan are related to capacity building to maintain the balance of power, as Ambassador Saab earlier mentioned, and that balance of power is pivotal when it comes to Pakistan and India having a bone of contention like Kashmir. And Sana, if we talk about Pakistan as a state and past of Pakistan as a state and Pakistan's advancements in terms of trying to maintain the balance of power in the region. I mean, it is very well known that in past there were sanctions on Pakistan as well, and them sanctions, whenever we have been seeing them sanctions, I mean, we can right now we can simply predict that there is something cooking in the minds of the deep state of America. They have a design to implement in this region, and for that reason, of course, they are putting these kind of sanctions on Pakistan, so that in coming days and coming months, when there is negotiation needed with Pakistan, they can of course keep these sanctions on the table as well as a bargain chip. They have been doing it before, they will do it in the future, and of course it is always expected by a sort of narcissist country like US, who always comes up with these kind of implications over Pakistan. And when it comes to India, we very well know they have been working on weapons of mass destruction, which we keep on hearing from the Americans, and they don't hear it from them. 1500 kilometers is the hypersonic missile DRDO comes up with, and nobody shows them eyes. Why? Because it is against Pakistan. It's like very recently, I mean, in the recent times, weapons of mass destructions were being used openly were being used by Israel over Gaza. Weapons of mass destruction, they've been used by Israel over Lebanon, and now for 5 consecutive days, day and night, there were bombings over Syria, and there were many locations where they already knew that there are weapons of mass destruction, there are chemical weapons. As long as they were in the hands of Assad, they were all okay, because they knew that these weapons are not going to be used against Israel or any of the allies of US in the region. And as soon as they get jittery on ground, they simply, of course, bomb every place, because now they know. This shows that these are not weapons of mass destruction that bother them. As long as they are being used against Muslims, they are all okay. They are happy about it. But when they are a deterrence for anyone else of, like, let's say, allies of US, the actual allies of US, the hate mongers of US, hate mongers like Hindutva ideology, hate mongers like Zionism, they are all okay with all of these WMDs. But when it comes to Pakistan trying to create a balance of power in the region, they simply come up with the weapons of mass destruction. It's like you talking to Iraq or you talking to any other country. For God's sake, you already know Pakistan has and had and have a need to, of course, counter India, because Pakistan would never allow India to be a monster, a hegemon, and so that it can come and do anything it wants in coming future. It's like they want to create another Ukraine in the region. And is this what they're trying to do? Or it's like they want to create another Palestine, another Syria, another Lebanon in the region? This is what they want. That's why we need the balance of power, and America, it needs to understand, the deep state needs to understand. And Biden has a habit of being very mischievous when it comes to, of course, playing with these kind of political gimmicks. I'm glad that he's leaving the office very soon, and he'll be disappearing elsewhere. But as soon as, of course, Trump comes, Trump needs to figure out the ways how to keep the balance of power in the region.
Right, and it's important, of course, to understand these dynamics. And Farrukh, I want your take on this as well, because while, of course, we can make these comparisons in terms of Israel and other countries and decision making with the US with regards to their actions, I want an understanding then if that really factors in when we talk about these decisions, that this is something that Pakistan, of course, is engaging with in terms of its strategic needs or in terms of the stabilization needs, or is a program that is supported by its nation. What really is the perspective here when we take a look at it from the US's point of view, and in terms of the double standards that have also been pointed out by the Foreign Office? How does that factor in terms of us putting forward any sort of stance? Because what are the real grounds on which this action is taking place if it's not fairness?
Right, Slara, thank you very much. I think that one thing is clear. These double standards that we talk about, they are quite evident, especially in two countries, right? India is, of course, one example that we are going to return to, but the other one is Israel. Remember that when Saddam Hussein was actually first war was waged against him, it was only because he actually invaded another country and took control of resources. Now there is a country that has not only killed 50,000 of people under its charge, or within its sphere of influence. Then it has gone into Lebanon and bullied everybody. It destroyed so many lives. Now it has gone into Syria and taken over its land also. And yet that country is only, there was only one time when the Biden administration tried to stop the weapons to them, but then they had to actually let go and allowed that. So the double standards are quite clear. And this is the biggest problem. Any country that actually talks about collective security and then claims to be the policeman of the world, or at least shining city on the hill, that country has to show better moral fiber. Unfortunately, that is not the case. But Faisal was talking about two, lobbies actually working against Pakistan. One was what? Hindutva, the other one was Zionism. I don't know what Pakistan or Zionism have to do in the same sentence. But when it comes to India, there's, I wouldn't call it Hindutva lobby, Sana. I would call it Indian lobby. And Indian lobby has been growing and has been going from strength to strength. And amazingly, when war on terror started, there were two things. India was insisting that there should be some measure of de-hyphenation. Pakistan, India should not be, used to be Indo-Pakistan or Pak-Hind. But then they said that this hyphenation has to end. And then they try to, or the lobby tried to actually hyphenate us with Afghanistan. So the idea was that these are the same kind of things and they are going to suffer the same way. Whatever it is, but in two cases, India has been demanding that hyphenation continues. When Pakistan is rewarded for something, that means that at that time India would also get some bribe. Otherwise, Pakistan cannot be placated. That's why during the war on terror, whatever we got, India got double or quadruple, and it continued to do so. And then, whenever India is punished, Pakistan has to be punished also to just mollify India's, sentiments. And that we have seen when they were actually, this whole thing started when India was essentially being, reprimanded for the murder of 6 in America or in Canada and attempted murder in Canada, in America. At that time they had to balance it. I mean, don't take it lightly, because when Malala was being given Nobel Prize, they had to ensure that a person in India, especially whose hallmark was in the garb of fighting child labor, his actual pursuit was because Muslims are poor and they employ their own children, all those looms should be shuttered down. So that guy also managed to get Nobel Prize just because Malala Yousafzai had to be given a Nobel Prize in India, as sensibilities had to be actually taken into account. Now, when you talk about India's influence, let me also be honest, excuse me, about our own, accountability. We have also massively dropped the ball in two ways. One thing, of course, Indian lobby captain tries to get into the American head and tries to perpetuate these norms, these ideas or these myths that India can be, some kind of counter to China. But whether Americans are convinced or not, they did a great job of convincing Pakistan that is what is going to happen. Remember Ashley Tellis, who in 1999 actually partook in a DoD exercise in which Pakistan was shown to be assailed by America and India, and it was called Asia 2025. In that, he actually participated, and he was biggest supporter of India as a counterweight to China. Now recently he has come out and said that India is playing double games and it is going to have the similar kind of attitude, and it cannot be trusted as an ally. And yet we have convinced ourselves that India is going to be an essential part of American realpolitik in that region. So with that kind of state of affairs, and then from Petraeus amendment, I remember another very important thing. Every time there is discord within Pakistan, and Pakistanis are not speaking with one voice, that also comes back to haunt us. At that time also there was this struggle going on, and eventually they got us. Now the Biden administration is in his lame duck period. In lame duck period, Sana, usually whatever measures are taken, they are half-baked and they are reversed easily. But unfortunately, because we have actually been dropping ball at the time when India was really milking America's economy, its influence all over the world, we somehow managed to just make our cooperation about one man, that was General Musharraf. And then whatever governments came, they also tried to play the same thing. What happened, Sana? In the end, when you talk about Pakistan, Pakistan lost the ground in Washington DC. If a lame duck government actually puts a sanction, the next government usually carries it forward. It has become bipartisan in some ways. For example, Donald Trump's that tweet where he was lambasting Pakistan, that day entirety of America, including Democrats, right, also sang the same song. They supported, despite the fact all the media was fighting Trump on everything else, but not on Pakistan. Similarly, when Nawaz Sharif was Prime Minister and there was a phone call between Donald Trump and Mia Nawaz Sharif, at that time what happened? American media started making fun of it and there was unanimity. So the point is, if you want to play ball, if you want to actually not have these sanctions, you have to up your game and you have to regain the ground that you lost. And of course, in that, we cannot have the luxury of saying that that lobby, which has nothing to do with us, is also our enemy, or this lobby is our enemy also. What you have to do is you have to focus on the prize and then know the people who are actually undercutting you and then combat them through influence. Go to State Department, Sana, now what you are astounded to see is it is so, every Pakistan officer turns out to be somebody from Indian origin. Why would that be? I mean, is it something that Pakistan also get to have a Pakistani origin person actually heading India office? No, that doesn't happen. So you have to start claiming, you have to start asserting, and there has to be a measure of lobbying, and for heaven's sake, we have to actually come together as a nation so that our differences are not weaponized and used against us.
Right. Then Ambassador Sahab, I want your take on that as well in terms of the way that the government has made those efforts, particularly in the region as well, and then of course with the US. And now with the new leadership also in place, what sort of avenues can we really look at in terms of regional stability, and especially in terms of defense cooperation, or in terms of programs that are important to us in terms of our own strategic assets and in terms of our own security? Can there be that understanding that exists with countries like the US in terms of engagement within the region? In terms of ensuring and putting forward and projecting a stance that makes us at par with other countries?
See, we may not sort of compare the capacity of each country is different. Its own strategic approach is different. But what we can say are what we need to do, in fact, which is grounded into the reality, into the geostrategic and geoeconomic reality of Pakistan. That Pakistan cannot be wished away. It cannot be all the time like put down by these gimmicks, as our friend was saying. They're not gimmicks, of course, they do impact our capacity. So what can happen is that we need to really, when the new government comes, we need to talk with an open mind, and we should emphasize that Pakistan is committed to the regional stability, which is in turn in the interest of the US overall interest that this region remains stable. That is for sure, that if Pakistan is not allowed to keep its deterrence, there will be instability in this vital region, and Pakistan, any instability which impacts Pakistan's security would definitely have an impact on the overall global security. One second, we still have the issue of terrorism on our northern borders, and if Pakistan has to contend with all and cannot afford to have these second and third fronts, and how can we then concentrate on terrorism? So I think this narrative can be built on the Capitol Hill, in the State Department in the US. Basically, we need to concentrate and I think give more attention to our legwork, if you will, because I have been in the US twice there in the Pakistan mission to the UN and as well as in the US. So that there is a whole entire an army of lobbyists working there. And I tell you, not to brag about what we did, but with a little bit of legwork, we were able to make a very effective Pakistan caucus in the U.S. Congress, which still is there, but I don't see any of its members doing something active. I mean, there was this late Sheila Jackson Lee. He was a very, she was from Houston, and she was kind of very friendly with us when we were in Houston. And she worked very hard. Al Green, and there are several. In fact, I was able to even get Ted Poe, who is now and kind of turn into against Pakistan. So there are several congressmen who can be cultivated, who can be brought in to understand, cultivated not by like other means, but they be made to understand the importance of Pakistan. I have not seen any congressional delegation coming for many years. Why not? Our ambassador should do that. And get some congressional leaders come in here, and our parliamentarians go there and explain the dilemma that we face of security in South Asia. And of course, our community have to not politicize their contacts there. I think we better not wash our linen in public. That is a problem, that is a complaint I have. They are such a great people there, Pakistanis, doing extremely well, but the unfortunate thing is their polarization, politicization, which is completely not relevant in America. They should be contesting congressional elections there, not be worried about what we do here. Why not? Why not there? Why shouldn't they promote and project themselves to go into the State Department? I see, as it was rightly pointed out, that why so many people of Indian origin in almost every good office, because our young people are kind of either not guided or their energies are somewhere else. And there are several now noises being made not to only help Pakistan, but to damage Pakistan through the overseas Pakistan. My God, what a tragic thing to hear. So I think we need to really tell our compatriots in the US by way of I think public diplomacy or counseling or whatever way we have to make sure that the overseas Pakistani should become our asset, our strategic asset, as they are now becoming for India, rather than they politicizing themselves on.
I have a follow-up question. I have a follow-up question, Ambassador Saab, especially because we spoke about missile technology, and we also spoke. We keep on hearing lose nukes, lose missiles, and whatnot. And then there is a matter of accountability also. During recent times, I mean, during previous government or regime, there was an incident when India ended up misfiring a missile into Pakistan. And it appeared to be a mismanagement on the part of Indians. But it seems that Pakistan did not make much of that. Amazingly strange things keep on happening when it comes to Pakistan's interest. America is about to withdraw from Afghanistan. All of a sudden, at that time, who is actually heading UNSC? It is India. Pakistan's vote also went into it. And then Pakistan suddenly is locked out at that time, loses all the voice, and India has all the say. Similarly, on this missile issue also, we seem to have actually dropped ball. Why is it that we are not having conversation about those things? Because a country like India, which actually practically has proven that it has its uranium keeps on being stolen, its missiles actually end up in Pakistan. So which country is actual mismanager of nuclear assets? It is India. But we seem to, lose voice at critical junctures. Why would that be?
Systemic weaknesses that we have at the level of, I think, state institutions, at the public policy level, and perhaps at the implementation level. And I think we need to really pull all the state institutions, refocus, and in fact, unfortunately, what is happening for the past now, I think 2 to 3 years, is the political uncertainty. And when the government's attention is diverted so much with the dharnas and other things, and I tell you what, I was when you are in the embassy, really we have to explain again and again and again and what is happening in Pakistan, rather than concentrating, lobbying with the congressman, with the Senate, with the State Department. We all the time have a brief coming from Pakistan that this is the reason, this is the reason. So I think we have to really put our house in order here, bring in some way or the other a consensus as to how we want to govern ourselves. And these kind of dangerous voices which we hear now of using our own people against Pakistan, my God. I mean, where you see the other adversary, if you will, using its diaspora as a strategic asset. In fact, I just recently heard that how it is going to change the Indian global stature, the diaspora, and we are that has been now weaponized against Pakistan. I mean, there couldn't be anything more ridiculous than this. And I don't know whether this is not a program for our domestic politics, but definitely Pakistani diaspora is an important asset for Pakistan. We must find a way out that it remains an asset for Pakistan and does not like be reversely used against Pakistan, and should not be politicized. Maybe I think I might be sounding too loud for the political parties, that there has to be a legislation where any overseas wings abroad for the Pakistanis should not be allowed. They are Pakistanis and that's it. You know, it was a big problem when I was there in several other capitals where was a Pakistani community like Kuwait and US and many other. Each wing has its own agenda and they have their own flag. They should just be carrying one green flag of Pakistan. I think the government should start thinking that any political wing of the political parties abroad should not be allowed. They should be only be working for Pakistan. And I think if they want to do politics, anybody, they have to come back to Pakistan and not kind of become tools in the hands of the enemies of Pakistan. Yeah.
Right, thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, for joining us and being part of the discussion today with regards to these decisions with the US sanctions coming in place, and of course what Pakistan's response is going to be. We're going to quickly also take a look at Pakistan's economic situation. Of course, the Pakistan Stock Exchange would seem to have gone through a record one-day decline. And Faisal, very quickly, your take on this, because when we talk about the economy and we talk about certain measures that are very good steps and very positive measures that we also highlight, but then of course we see a day like this. So what does that do to the business sentiment?
Yes, and obviously fluctuation, it obviously would be part of Pakistan Stock Exchange, and we shouldn't be worried about it. But of course, overall, looking at the situation, I mean, yesterday we were talking about the political stability, how it is important for the economic stability as well. And if economic stability is required and is to be of course sort of desired in Pakistan, then of course political stability is required too.
Right.
So of course right now we are seeing that there are different sort of political games which are being played in Pakistan from the opposition party and from other parties as well. I would simply suggest that all of the political parties, they need to come on board and of course figure out how to maintain Pakistan's economic stability.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Faisal, for that. Farrukh, very, very quickly in 20 seconds, PSX exchange as a measure.
Yeah, there isn't one stock exchange in the world which can tell you that it is going to always keep on moving up and up. But it has nothing to do with political instability. But some dynamics of various company stocks, that is true. That happened yesterday. But today, because of something else as well, Dow Jones also dipped. India's Sensex also seems to be crashing.
Right.
So there seems to be an international sentiment. We shouldn't actually confuse all the factors with whatever we have got on our political agenda.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate as always. That's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.